Well, Sky Striker took UDS Vegas, bent it over, and won that event like it was its job. So what is up, guys? In the video, we're going to be looking at the first place Sky Striker deck. Kind of look some things over, kind of figure out why this deck did so well. And, well, you know, it's Sky Striker. I know, guys. We've beaten this deck to a pulp this format. So many people are so frustrated seeing this infinitely, and I understand that. But you have to understand, with the way that the format has gone in terms of innovation and things like that, it is good to see that this deck kind of came back out. Now, as I said in the discussion this morning, that this was a 12-round event for 360 people. Now remember, a regional that size is usually only 9 rounds. You're adding an extra 3 rounds of Swiss onto the event. So when you're looking at deck choices for an event like this, then you're going to see that the more consistent variants, the overall better card choices are what's going to do well. And I think it's very interesting to kind of understand that. Now, in a format where Sky Striker's representation has gone down, you can kind of loosen up on the shared rights a little bit. I think this is important because we really saw a lot of people going massively into the shared right department in previous events because people were like, oh, it has a great Sky Striker for the mirror. This is everything you want. But when you have other decks in the format that I guess are a little bit more scary than what this deck can actually do, then yes, you're going to put something like shared ride more towards the side deck, just for when you get to the mirror, because in Salad it's honestly do or die for other certain situations for card choices. Now this was an interesting one. I didn't actually think we would see DD Crow make his way into Sky Strikers. I guess in the current format where stopping and removing a certain issue that your opponent is probably going to present you with, I actually think that this isn't a bad call. Being able to spot removal the trap card or any sort of extender that the opponent is going to need to do their play, Spinny, for example, or something like that, if you can stun the advancement of your opponent even just a little bit, I think Crow is definitely better. Also, he's not once per turn, and that's definitely something else I've been seeing. The fact that Crow and Valor are not restricted to once per turns is honestly making them the superior hand trap choices for when you draw 2 of them. So definitely something a little bit more interesting there. Also in the side deck department, Summon Limit moving its way up to just being a massive powerhouse right now. Like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, this slows down Sky Striker in the mirror. Yes, it does. But if you're playing appropriate and things like that, you won't end up with an issue with this. Also the fact that, like, inherently this just wins the Salaman Great matchup for you. Yes, I would put much more of a focus on this for things like that. Now, other things that stuck out to me, 3 field spells, which I already discussed. 2 copies of Eagle Booster showing back up as a norm right now, which is good. Only 2 Twin Twisters in the main. I think everybody thought that we needed 3 for this matchup. Honestly, I think at the rate that we're going right now, I think 2 Twin is probably the best thing to do. Also, removing that other twin allows for triple copies of Foolish Burial Goods to be played. I think that this is probably the thing that was the most interesting. Obviously, that once per turn clause written on this card makes me cry, but interesting, putting extra spells in the graveyard to kind of take off and make more of your initial combo plays and things like that. Yeah, I think that this isn't a bad call. I kind of like where he was going with this. So outside of that, it kind of wraps itself up as your standard Sky Striker deck. Also, 2 copies of Kaina. I think, what was it? A lot of people are like, oh no, like, you don't want to play more than one. Like, oh, it's so bad. Or like, you go too Hayate. They're not worried about, you know, the bullshit that comes with Altergeist now. No longer need Claire and Rushka. Also, Topological Bomber Dragon making an appearance. So let's kind of dig into this deck a little bit, kind of see why this did good outside of the things I already talked about. So, triple copies of Ash Blossom, mandatory staple. This thing is going to get you places that you didn't actually think that you would be able to get playing this deck. Mandatory staple. You have to play this. Now, having played Valor, this format, I do agree. This card is really good. It does suck that it has to be in main phase, but it's not a terrible trade-off in the long run. because you have to bring in bad cards like this now. Like Sky Striker didn't have a choice but to evolve with shittier cards, and especially something like Effect Veiler. Triple copies of Sky Striker Ray. We don't have to talk about this. You guys just need to understand that this card is your monster, and it is the heart and soul of the deck. Now spells, triple copies Foolish Bro Goods. As I said earlier, having a card that literally puts your toolbox into the graveyard allows you to superficially extend and do things like that. Yeah. But like I said, 3 is an interesting number. I think it's one that I didn't expect per se, but I guess in a tournament like this, it definitely seems like it would come up. 1 copy Metalphos Fusion, just recycle ability, extra spell in the graveyard, draw into another extender, things like that. 1 copy Rhoda, having additional copies of the best card in your deck is great. Also, same logic with this. You're playing 3 Area 0 because you want to see Ray. I don't necessarily agree with 3. I haven't been a fan of 3 since I went down to 2, but the card does say Special Summon Ray from the deck. So when you see it like that, I do understand why you look towards this card to help you in those situations. 1 copy of Afterburners, 1 Jamming Waves. Same thing, they're part of the toolbox. Bring them in as you need to. 2 copies of Eagle Booster. No other real explanation needed here. This card has just gotten a lot better, especially when you put a monster on the board and you needed to stick through the next turn so that your opponent can't OTK you. Putting something like a Shizuko on the board with a 500 power down that your opponent can't do anything about is actually really good. Now we have 1 copy of Hornet Drones, standard, you play it. 1 copy of Shark Cannon, once again, standard, you play it because you can. We have triple copies of Widowanker, you play it because you can. Now, because we've maxed out on the field spell, I do agree with the fact that you have to play triple multi-roll. I think you play the amount of multi-rolls for the amount of field spells that you want to play, because obviously this plus field spell gets you the potential to mill cards. It gets you the Special Summon of the Ray, which you actually are going to need to kind of start things off in the long run. And if you don't get that option to participate and play the game, you know, you're going to fail. So in the long run, amount of race for the amount of field spells you play, I think is fine. Of course, triple copies Engage. Why not? Now, I had heard a few people talk about playing 3 field spell. You don't want to play extra copies of Terraforming. I think the 2-3 split is fine on this. It's another spell in the graveyard. It gives you more means to resolve your engages and draw those extra cards. Don't be discouraged if you draw this and open the field spell. It just means that you get an extra dump in the graveyard. Now, 2 copies of Twin Twisters, as I said already. 3 is bad right now. Having the ability to, hey, play 1 less, play an extra field spell combo more, it's fine. 1 copy of Upstart Goblin. Hey, I'll take this. Free draws. It's fantastic. And then, of course, we play triple copies of Impermanence. It's a hand trap. It does frickin' wonders for your bad matchups. It just makes life so much easier. I think people get discouraged looking at Impermanence in this deck, like, I don't want to play it. It doesn't lose Called by the Grave. I think it's important to understand. Now the extra deck down here. We have 1 copy of Topological Bomber Dragon. So being able to bring this out and trigger a board wipe on the opponent's turn is really good, or on your turn if you need it. Also, the fact that you can start pressuring your opponent with burn damage, oh, that's probably the best part about this card. I think a lot of people really forget that that's why you play this card. Also, it's 2+ effect monsters to make it for those really weird hands. Triple copies of Shizuku, we know that. 2 copies of Kaina. For a 12-round tournament, I would definitely be packing these. You just steal games in time because you get to gain life points through this claw. It's so good. Triple Kagari, triple Hayate. No real qualms there. Those numbers look fine. And then 1 Unicorn, 1 Phoenix, and 1 Boral Sword. I think in terms of construction that the extra deck is about as staple as it's going to get in this. You can argue for Claire and Rushka, but that's only if you're playing something like Altergeist. But where Altergeist have just, they faded away in the metagame. You don't need to worry about them anymore. So I think it's something else too. People are stuck on their old mentalities. Side deck, we have 2 copies of D-Crow, as I said, another helper to take care of the issues in the current format. Triple copies of Droll and Lockbird. Hey, I hate you, Danger. I'm really glad to see that we have an out for the deck that we can cite in. 2 copies of Shared Ride, once again, for the mirror match, generate advantage, and things like that. Another copy of Twin Twister just for the matchups that you think you're going to need this in. Triple copies of Evenly Matched. I love going second, as do most people playing this deck. No Prankatops, but I understand that, like, he's not that good this format. 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster. Oh, absolutely. You go first with this deck, you get that back row destruction. Oh, you're in such a good position. And then 2 copies of Summon Limit, wrapping up this deck profile. So guys, please, comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. Are you shocked to see that Sky Striker or what? I'd like to hear your guys' opinions on the deck. And well, guys, I'm out. The ride never, well, truly ends. Thank you, patrons. Without you guys, I don't know what I'd be wearing in these videos. I might be a truffle shuffle incident all over again. Guys, please also check out VanCole40 for some awesome Vanguard content. Some other interesting stuff you might find up here on the left or in the description as well. Thanks for watching.